Hey everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the MMA card for this Saturday, September 4th. For those of you that followed this last week, I mean, I really hope that you won. It would be difficult not to. In any case, we happen to have gotten lucky that we were on the one-round finisher, Al Hassan, whoever. I thought that was a really strong play, and at a cheap price, and that kind of paved the way for some good results. So this card this week is only a 10-fight card, and what's interesting about it is, at least the way I look at it, based on my numbers, it does rate to be a relatively low-scoring card. You don't have those, multiple key fights where, guys are just definitely going out in the first round. So it's going to be, it's going to be, I don't want to say somewhat win equity based, but to some degree, more win equity based than normal. However, I'm still going to approach this the same way, in that we're going to look at who's got upside. We're going to look at who has a good finishing prop, and we're going to look at what underdogs kind of fit our player pool. The first thing I'd like to say is that the main event here is one that you don't have to play. The favorite here, Darren Till, is just kind of notorious for being low volume. So with that said, that sets the stage for a fight that can be faded, because normally when you have that 5-round fight, you have that 5-round floor where you can rack up volume if you don't get a finish, but he's not really a volume guy. Brunson is perhaps the more interesting of the two because he's got that wrestling upside. That's his path to victory, but we're going to get to that. So let's first take a look, and I'll show you what's going on with this card here with respect to these props. There are only a couple of them that have a really strong inside distance prop, and I'm going to highlight those right now. So one of them is Aspinall against Spivak. That's almost a pick 'em to go under 1.5 rounds, and that is by a wide margin the best inside the distance prop. So that would be, I guess, the first core play that I would probably want to play is Aspinall, because I mean he's a huge favorite, and there's a strong inside the distance prop. I don't think I'm going to get to Spivak, but we'll get to that in a minute. The other strong inside the distance prop is, well, there are a couple of them that are a little worse, but still okay. This one, which is Bukakis against Khalil Roundtree, under 1.5 rounds is like a -130. So it's close to round. It's close to Aspinall, just a little bit worse. But this is definitely the second best of all of them. And then you can make arguments for some of these others. So let's look at this Burial. No, was it Burial? No, Jourdain. This was the other one. So this one is, I don't know. It's just okay. It's not that big of a deal. So as far as inside the distance props, it's not, it's really about those two fights, the Spivak Aspinall and the Roundtree Bukakis fight. The other fight that we have to talk about is this Jack Shore fight. So he's a 5-1 favorite, and it's basically a rigged fight for him. I mean, they're giving him a guy who he's going to slaughter, and he's kind of one of the next dudes that the UFC really wants to win. So I really don't see any winning upside for the underdog in the spot. The only question is going to be whether he pays off that price. And I was expecting him to be higher than this, if I'm going to be honest. Now, I thought that Jack Shore, a 5-1 underdog, a 5-1 favorite, was going to be 9,400, and he's a very reasonable 9,100. Now, the fight does favor to go to a decision. Actually, it's about pick'em, but he's just such an advantage that you'd have to think that along the way he'll get a bunch of takedowns, throw up a bunch of volume and things like that. So if you fade him because he doesn't rate to get a finish, I think that's probably unwise. I mean, I really feel as though that if you started your lineups with Shore and Aspinall, I mean, I think you're really in business. I think both of them have really strong win odds. They're Aspinall's inside the distance prop is really strong, and Jack Shore is just kind of a lock. So I think that is definitely a good way to start your lineups, is to play somebody from the Roundtree Muskakis fight, and then probably Aspinall and what's his name and Shore. I did hear some talk that this Arosa Jourdain fight was a key fight, but then when I looked at the props, it just doesn't really. I mean, it's close. I mean, it is fight does not go to decision -200. So okay, so maybe this is okay. So this is the third one. So let me just restate. So we're going to have Roundtree, Buskakis, Spivak, Aspinall, Jourdain, Arosa. I think those are the three fights then. But in order, Roundtree, then Spivak by himself, and then this Jourdain, with Shore being just kind of like the lock win rate, win odds guy. So what we have to do is talk about these underdogs, and because again, you just can't play all the favorites. And the underdogs, let's rate these by fight numbers, so we could just kind of look at it that way. So we're talking about either Rojo, whoever this guy is, Arosa, talked about Shore's opponent. And you have this interesting fight between McCann and Kim, which is kind of that 8K fight, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then you have this interesting kind of mid-range fight, Pimblett, Van Romini, which we'll talk about in a minute. The other underdog is Zawada, Spivak, and then Brunson. What's interesting about all of these underdogs, before we get back to the mid-range, is they all have, very volatile winning upside, okay? Which can score well on DraftKings. So Rojo, he's kind of a nut job, and he's going to bring a lot of pace. And if he can, get lucky or whatever, not only is he going to win, but he's going to score really well. So that's one really good underdog. Arosa as well in that Jourdain fight. He's going to be bringing a whole bunch of activity, and he's actually come out and said that he's going to try to wrestle him, and which is also really good for us. So he's live. And then, as I kind of alluded to before, well, Roundtree, he's basically a knockout artist. So if he wins, I would imagine that would be inside the distance. So he's a live underdog. Then Brunson at 7,400 is just an extremely live underdog, because not only does he have the 5 rounds or whatever, but he also is a wrestler. So he's got that wrestling upside. And as a matter of fact, Brunson, with the 5 rounds, with the wrestling, I would not be surprised at all if he lost and still made the optimal. I really think that on a card like this, I think that is very possible. So I guess by talking this out, I guess Brunson would be kind of a key play, kind of in cash games. Now I am hearing a lot of that, so he's going to be probably really popular for exactly that reason. But hey, it is what it is. So Morona, Zawada, I'm fading that fight completely. And then you have these 2 mid-range fights that we talked about, which I alluded to, and that would be Kim McCann and Pimblett Vendramini. I will say a couple of things about this. First of all, they're both kind of pick'em fights, and their price is a pick'em fight. McCann, from what I've heard, is the one with the rest and the one with the takedowns and things like that. So from a DraftKings perspective, she's probably a better play than Kim. The thing I would say though is for a pick'em fight, I feel as though the industry is like 90% on McCann. I don't know whether that's because it taken into account the wrestling upside from a DFS perspective, but I have not heard a single tout or a single recording or a single video recommend Kim, and yet Kim is the favorite. So I talked about this last week when we talked about the Jakazi fight. I mean, that was a pick'em fight, and nobody wanted to take him. I mean, everybody thought Barboza was a lock, but yet Vegas had him at pick'em. I just didn't quite get it. So I would be cautious about going too crazy with McCann here. It's something kind of smells fishy with that play. So I will just kind of caution you with that. And Pimlet Vendramini. Vendramini disappointed some people as kind of what they thought was a live favorite. I think he was a live small favorite in his last fight. What was his price? Oh, 7,900. He was a live long, live small underdog, and people played him a lot, and he really disappointed people. And this Pimlet guy is coming in with a lot of hype. And for me, that's a kind of recipe for the other side. It's kind of recipe for Vendramini going a little lower owned because of recency bias. So I guess if you were going to play these two mid-range fights, I think that I would opt for Vendramini, just to be somewhat contrarian. I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, if you went through, I mean, I can't really build an actual lineup here, but remember, it's only 10 fights, so it is kind of, kind of straightforward. But if you played, let's say, Espinal, and let's say you play Jack Shore right off the bat, let's see what kind of pressure that puts on you with respect to lineup construction. Yeah, so if you did that, let's say you wanted to play the A side of one of these key fights like Jordan, you could do that. You could probably do that, but then what ends up happening, what you'll end up having to do? You'll end up having to play one of these 8Ks and then two of these other underdogs. But that's fine. That's a decent lineup. That can get there. So if you play these two and then play just mid-range plays, you could definitely get away without even playing much of any underdog, right? I mean, 7,900. I mean, let's just say you played McCann, Vendramini. You could stay in this 8K range probably and almost not have to play any big underdog. So there are a lot of ways that you could build for this particular fight, but for fight card. But I do feel as though that Aspinall and Shore would be the way I would start. And with that said, I guess now Spivak's going to come out there. But don't be afraid to fade the main event. And I guess that would be pretty much it. Good luck, everybody. And let's get it.